Hi, everyone. Welcome to Richer Health and our Q&A today as we jump into the topic of water on BeLive TV and our Facebook Live page. So today we are talking about H2O. Whoa, it is one of my favorite subjects. And water is so important because of the fact that our bodies are made up of water. You know, this stats say that it's, 70%, 80%, 90%. At the end of the day, does it really matter? What is important is to truly understand that our body is made up of water and life on Earth is predominantly made up of water. Water covers the Earth. It saturates our body. We wouldn't exist without it. And what is absolutely insane in this world today is how we pollute our water systems externally, our oceans, our rivers, our streams, but internally as well. So once again, I'm Nicolette Richer, CEO and founder of the Green Mustache Organic Juice and Food Bar and Richer Health Consulting. And we are launching our newest project in Pemberton, BC, with Center and Wellness Center. And this year as well was a big year. We also launched Sea to Sky Thriver Society, which is the nonprofit arm of the Green Mustache and Richer Health Consulting, so that we can share this kind of information with citizens in our communities that wouldn't necessarily have access to it. So elementary school students, high school students, First Nations, and physicians. Because, as we know, physicians don't receive a lot of nutritional training in school. In fact, I was just at the doctor's this morning. We were talking about fascia. So fascia are those, that intricate fiber network through our body that essentially is interwoven into every aspect of our entire being. If we removed our fascia, we would essentially fall to the floor like a puddle of goo, muscle-y goo, and organ goo. We need that fascia to actually maintain integrity and structure in our body. And anyway, this particular doctor was saying how they never learned about fascia in med school. And she's young like me, so it wasn't like she went to med school in the 1920s. So it is important to know that those programs that we offer through Sea to Sky Thriver Society, our nonprofit, are really there to help people understand the importance of keeping our bodies clean, nutrified, detoxified, and how we can use whole, organic, plant-based food as medicine, especially in this day and age where it's been shown that 1 in 2 people now get diagnosed with cancer in their lifetime. That's a stat right out of Health Canada and the BC Cancer Agency and the Canadian Cancer Agencies. And also 1 in 4 people are living with a chronic disease. And that can be reversed easily with food because diet is responsible for 80% of everything. And most of these chronic diseases that we're talking about, we're not talking about the genetic ones. Only about 3% of, cancers and chronic diseases are actually truly genetic. And for the remainder of those, the 97%, they are lifestyle diseases from our very, very sad standard American diet. And, that applies to everybody. Most times when I'm meeting people in their homes, everyone likes to tell me how healthy they are. And when I get into how much produce, this is fresh produce that they're eating in a day or a week, it's virtually non-existent if you compare it to all of the processed foods that they're also consuming. And so now we need to flip that. And that's what we're doing here at Richer Health and at the Green Mustache, is getting people to flip the ratio of all the foods that really predominantly are made up of sugar, soy, wheat, corn, and salt. Those 5 ingredients make up most of the food, 80% of the food that we're now eating. And how do we reverse that so that we have abundance and variety in our diet? So today's topic, though, is not so much about the food. It's about the water. Now, I used to work in government where I used to manage water policy projects and environmental education projects and around water and water conservation programs, and I had to design and build those. And I was always so shocked by how very little people know about where their water comes from. Now, I would do surveys in our community, and these surveys would go out to very, very intelligent people. And I would say, where does the water in your tap come from? And their answer was that, well, it comes from the sky. It comes from the rivers. It comes from the glacier melt. And yes, that is true, actually. But I don't know too many places where most people are just reaching out their glass and catching raindrops in their glass and chugging it back 8 times a day for their 8 glasses of water a day, or dipping it into the rivers and the streams and drinking directly out of the streams. I wouldn't do it. That's why I won't get into water filters and the type of water filter I use. But there's a process that happens from where that rain falls from the sky, enters in our streams and rivers, and then eventually makes it into our taps. And this is really important that people understand this. Now, this is going to change depending on where you live in the world. So if you are living in most North American cities and European cities, chances are that water is being collected into a reservoir somewhere. So it's either being pulled out of aquifers and pumped up into the reservoir from the pools of water that exist underneath our feet. So literally underneath our feet. There's beautiful pools of water called aquifers. There are natural reservoirs that just collect water in these deep sources, and the water is great. The water is clean for the most part. It depends, though, how deep these aquifers are, and it also depends on what's happening in the community. If these aquifers are located directly underneath farmland, I mean, they are susceptible to having all the pesticides and insecticides and herbicides and other chemicals, and also just car runoff and other pollutants that flow into these aquifers. Now, the other way water is collected is that it gets pumped from a river and usually into a pump station, and then in that pump station the water gets cleaned at least once, and then it makes its way to the reservoir. So what is a reservoir? A reservoir is essentially a big holding tank. In the southern states, when I went to university there, I was playing tennis in Mississippi, you saw these reservoirs everywhere, but they actually were built up high. They were built on stilts, and they were very, very high, like 60, 70, 80, 100 feet off the ground. Now, here in Whistler, where I live, these reservoirs, you don't often see them. You might see them when you're hiking in the mountains, but they're just these massive, massive round buildings that exist, and they're usually put in the woods off the beaten path. And these reservoirs receive the water that's being pumped from these aquifers and from the rivers, and then they hold the water. Now, these are massive reservoirs, and they hold a lot of water. What happens in the summertime is these reservoirs often, the levels go down because, there's less water entering in that can be captured. There's forest fires that put a huge demand on how much water is in those reservoirs, as well as just our need to keep our grass clean. Or green. And, I personally love grass when it goes brown over the summer. It actually makes it more resilient when we allow it to go brown over the summer and then nourish over the winter and then turn green in the spring. It's pretty fantastic. But that's, again, another story. So when it comes to this water that's being held in the tanks, it can't just be held there without being treated. So it needs to be treated. And then the water leaves those reservoirs and has to travel through a pipe system to eventually make it to your neighborhood. And then it branches off and eventually makes it to your house. Now, there's these injection sites all along the way where somebody has to come along and literally inject whatever the chemical is of choice that they're using. Iodine would be a brilliant choice, except for the fact it's really expensive. But most times it is like a chlorine solution of some type. And, they put in the States, I know in parts of Canada, they do pump fluoride into the water as well. There's so many different things that are entering our water system. But just know that, even if you're living in this beautiful, green, clean city and that rains a lot and you have gorgeous rivers and streams, remember that your water is never coming directly from those sources into your glass. It has to go through a holding tank, processing tank, filtering tanks, injection sites. And so it's being mass handled along the way. And the reason we have to treat this water is because we need to keep humans clean. There's bacteria, there's viruses, there's pathogens, there's all of these things that, municipalities are responsible for human health that way. And so they have to inject it and keep it clean. So that's understandable, right? But what is the effect of having treated water in our bodies? And this is a topic that's really dear to my heart because I've been drinking filtered water for quite a long time. And anytime I go into any community, I can drastically taste the difference in the flavor of the water. Our water tends to smell like a swimming pool. When the minute I bring a glass up to my nose of tap water, it smells like a swimming pool. If you haven't been filtering your water, you're completely unaware of that. And you'd have to travel to a different community to probably smell different water and understand like if they have higher amounts of chlorine or different taste in the water. So, our palates get quite used to how the water in your community tastes. And I know in my community where there's this perception of clean air and clean water and clean everything, everybody's fit and healthy and biking and skiing, we're affected by the same disease rates here in Whistler. And the water is, it's the same water everybody's drinking, and they're drinking this chlorinated tap water that needs to be chlorinated. It needs to be treated. So one experiment that I have for you is to actually stop drinking tap water for 3 weeks. And what I want you to do is, it doesn't matter what kind of filter it is, get a cheap filter, it doesn't matter, but filter the water for 3 weeks and then try drinking the water and see what happens to your taste buds. See what happens to your nasal passage and its ability to actually take in the smells. Now, those smells aren't necessarily bad, but there's so many studies out there about the effects of tap water, and there are so many researchers and medical doctors who've announced, if you're going to do one thing for your health, just one thing, stop drinking tap water. Ocean Robbins, that is John Robbins' son. John Robbins wrote Diet for a New America. He's got a brilliant story. He's the Baskin-Robbins son who walked away from Baskin-Robbins ice cream, multi-million or billion-dollar business. And he realized that, the ice cream was really killing people. Like, it was really responsible for people's poor health, creating heart disease. Not the ice cream, but the ingredients in the ice cream, the dairy and that high animal fat and the high sugars and the fake products and all of those things. And John Robbins walked away from that completely. Read his book, Diet for a New America. It's a brilliant story, and a brilliant story about how his uncle, I believe, reversed his health, how his dad reversed his health, how they all got healthy years after John Robbins decided to walk away from the business because he didn't want to be contributing poor health. So let's get back to water. So I don't even know how to talk. Oh, Ocean Robbins. Yes. So Ocean Robbins, they have, a brilliant blog. Follow it. We're going to put the link below. And, they're putting out, research every single day. And a study just came out, and I apologize. I have not had a chance to open up the study and to really read it from beginning to end, to analyze it for bias. And, people are biased when they do these studies. And I like to pull out those pieces and make sure that when I'm reading a study, I'm reading a very good study where it was done in the most unbiased way possible for human beings. Human beings will always be biased, but, let's not be too biased when we're doing studies, which happens a lot. So that study just came out and saying that increasing tap water or drinking tap water can increase your chance of getting cancer by 97%. Now, that's a huge statistics. Right away, my alarm bells are going off. I'm like, really, 97%? However, there was an element of confirmation bias that was happening for me. And what confirmation bias is that when you believe in something and then you receive information that actually is saying that what you believe in is true, you're more eagerly ready to latch onto it. And of course, I did that. I read that study. I'm like, finally, the research has been coming out based on all, really justifying all the research that I've been doing for the last 20 years about water. But of course, again, I haven't read it, but it's saying that it can increase your chance of getting cancer by 97%. Now, here's why. Okay, so this is the one part that I truly understand about, why potentially those numbers could be correct. I'm not saying that they are, but they could be. And it's because a lot of people are afraid of the chlorine in water, and our body naturally needs chlorine. Okay, so, and chloride, it takes it in. It's just a salt, and our body takes it in and utilizes it. Too much, not good, right? We know that, chlorinated swimming pools are chlorinated so that they actually kill the bacteria, germs, viruses, pathogens, everything that, worms, things, it doesn't matter, that's in the swimming pools, because it's a public space. We need to keep people healthy. Now, this is what happens in municipal tap water systems. The water comes in, okay, it gets chlorinated, and then that chlorine actually acts, it starts to bind with the organic matter that is naturally in the pipes and in the water through sedimentation and everything that's in the water coming through the pipes that eventually lead to your house. Now, when that chlorine interacts with that organic matter, it actually creates three additional new compounds. And it's those additional new compounds that are actually carcinogenic. So this has all been known for a very, very long time. And of course, Health Canada and different health authorities, they set the standards on, what the safe levels are of chlorine, and what's the safe level for precipitates, and what's the safe level for this particulate matter that basically is allowed in our water. But often what they're not testing is what happens with those chemical interactions that are taking place. So that's what we need to be concerned about. Now, so if that study is correct, and I will be posting a blog most likely on this article that just came out, because that's huge. 97% chance of increasing cancer rates by drinking tap water. Well, yes, made my alarm bells go up. Confirmation bias, I'm admitting that to you, but it should also make your alarm bells go up. Like, why would somebody put studies out there like that? And look into it further. So I do what is easy. We're all we're human beings, and we like efficiency. And, I'm not going to sit here and analyze water quality studies through the roof. So what I do is I just filter my water. Number one, the reason I do it is because it tastes better. I hate the smell of swimming pools. And so why would I want to put that into my body? So we filter our water. Now there's, multiple ways to filter water. The idyllic way to filter your water is to actually put a water filtration system on the incoming pipes to your house. So, this is going to be a little bit more expensive. And if you're renting, chances are you're most likely not going to do this. But if you own a home and you feel like you're going to be there for a while, whether it's a year or more, then I would suggest putting a water filtration system on the intake pipes to your home. And it's really easy because they just go to the water main, attach a water filter. You're going to schedule it in your calendar when you need to check those water filters and change them. And it's as easy as that. And then what this does is it gives you filtered toilet water, which, filtering toilet water probably isn't, the most ideal thing because you're not drinking it. But the most importantly, though, it's filtering your shower water and it's filtering your bath water, because a lot of people forget. They're just used to, I filter my drinking water and that's great. But what happens when you take a bath? Your skin is your largest organ, biggest surface area, and your skin is constantly taking things in through the air, through gases that are present and around you, through lotions and creams and water that touches your skin, clothing that touches your skin, the fire retardants that are in clothing, all of that you're absorbing through your skin. And so, and you're taking, there's allergens, everything. So number one, when you're bathing in this chlorinated water, it's also disturbing the bacteria that's on your skin, leaving your skin in an unhealthy balance. Now, this doesn't just happen overnight, but people who are repetitively bathing, this can happen to them, especially if they're in an area where their water potentially is treated with more chemicals than another community. Now, with the bath as well, it's the other thing that happens in the bath and the shower is that most of us take warm baths and warm showers, unless you're Wim Hofing it, or you're like Tony Robbins and Wim Hof, who are taking cold showers, but they're still taking hot and cold usually. So what happens is that hot water, you get the steam that's happening, and so when the steam and those gases are coming off, then you're also inhaling those. So now it's not only your skin that's being inundated with this treated water, but it's also your lungs. You're breathing it in. And you all know when you have a cold, one of the best things to do is to get into a hot shower and breathe in the steam, and it loosens everything up in your face, in your lungs. It allows you to cough and sneeze it out. So remember, when you are taking a shower, those are the two ways that you are actually taking in that toxic matter. And so through the steam, through our skin, through our lungs. Now, not all of us are going to run out and put a water filtration system on the main water pipe of our house. So another way you can do it is just simply get shower water filters and bath water filters as well. And those are relatively inexpensive. You just plug them in. You do need to keep track of when you need to change them, but that would be a way to do it as well. And then third, you can go out and buy a water filter. Now, I have one water filter that I researched through and through and through. I compared it to every water filter system that I could find at the time. I haven't done a comparative study since, but I compared it to every water filter. So the Brita, the Centivia, there's so many different types. And the Berkey water filter came out to be by far one of the best water filters. And really one of the deciding factors at the end was also price for me, because I was getting so tired of using my Brita that's, you have to fill it up and wait for it to drip. And then sometimes it smells moldy because it does grow mold in the filters if you don't change them on time. And I would start to smell that. And then I would start to wonder, well, when did the mold actually start growing before I smelt it? So anyway, I was tired of using the Brita. And I also didn't like the taste of the water that was coming out. I've gone through so many water filters, and the taste was really important too. So price. It's with the Berkey, you do not have to change the filters very often. It depends how often you're using them, but it could be 1 to 2 years before you change those filters. So the cost per glass of water was by far the cheapest. It was nano pennies per glass. So that was important. The second part was how often you had to change the filters. My third criteria was whether the filters would go moldy. And with these, they do not. Now, another criteria that I loved about this is that, could you take it camping with you? So if you're camping and hiking and you need water, I remember used to carrying, when I was in India for a year, I used to carry around iodine tabs, and get tired of putting it in and waiting 25 minutes before I could drink it. And so I wished I had just had something where I can just grab it out of the stream. And there's really brilliant camping versions of water filters where you can take the water out of the stream and just essentially pump it through the filter. It does take time. It takes, elbow grease to do that. And that wasn't going to work for our household. It wasn't going to work for our restaurants either and for our customers. So the Berkey is great because it's a stainless steel system. It sits on your counter, no electricity needed. You don't have to change the water filters very often. And all you do is fill up the top canister and the water slowly drips through. And if you were camping, you could actually take water out of the lakes and the streams, pop it through, and still get 99.9% of the pathogens and bacteria out of there. That's even better than what bleach and chlorine and all of those other toxic chemicals can do. So that was important. I still wanted to have clean drinking water that was going to remove a lot of those, any potential carcinogens, allergens, pollutants, all of those things, bacteria, pathogens. I didn't need those in my drinking water. So that was important. Now, with the Berkey water filter, you could even put red dye, which I believe is one of the smallest size dye particles. And I could be wrong about this, but one way to test if your Berkey is really working is you put dye in the top and see if you get clear water out of the bottom. And that's pretty cool and we've actually done that. It works, and the next best thing would be to send your water that comes through to a lab. And don't be afraid of becoming a researcher and a scientist, especially when it comes to water. So what you want to do then is that if you're living in a place where you're like, I don't know about the taste of this water, I don't know about the smell, and it doesn't have to taste bad or smell bad either to potentially not be good for you. So you can be a researcher and a scientist, and all you need to do is, grab some water samples and send it off to a local lab in your town, in your city. Pay the money to have it tested. I think it's really important. You want to have it tested for heavy metals. You want to have it tested for pathogens and, anything that's living and not good for you. You want to have it tested for chemicals. You want to have it tested for pesticides as well. Like if you're in a farming community and you're a bit worried that, maybe there's leachate entering into your water system, into your aquifers, and that's eventually making it into your house, definitely get your water tested. And remember to also get your water tested throughout the year as well. So you might do this every 1 or 2 years. If there's been a massive environmental disaster in your community, there's going to be an effect on your water system. Hence why some municipalities actually, send out warnings to, boil your tap water, or, not drink the tap water for a certain period of time until they can get that under control. So you can be your own researcher. You don't have to wait for somebody to tell you to not drink your tap water, right? Don't wait for those boil your water advisories to come out. Go out there, get your water tested, and make sure that you're drinking the finest water possible, because you are amazing. Your body is incredible. And wouldn't you want to just do everything that is good for your body? Now, that's water. That's water filters. We've talked a lot about that. We talked about where water came from, the fact that it doesn't just fall out of the sky and enter your drinking glass. Now let's talk about the importance of water in your body. And as I say that, I'm like feeling parched and dehydrated. And there it is. And The best way to hydrate when you are dehydrated is by drinking cold pressed juice. Now, the reason is because this has vital nutrients in there, and these are nutrients that are not going to be in your tap water. And my feeling about hydration and the research around hydration shows that if you are thirsty, the best way to actually reverse your dehydration is to drink nutrients, not just water. Now, everybody's on this craze to get their 8 glasses of water in a day. They're running around with their water bottles. They feel stressed at the end of the day if they didn't drink their 8 glasses, or if they forgot to, maybe only got 1 glass in. And everybody's worried about getting water into their body. Now, I have a lot of clients who come to me who have digestive issues. And the easiest way, the first thing anybody should ever do if you have digestive issues is to consider how much water you're drinking in a day, and consider not drinking water before, during, or just shortly after that you eat. Now, this kind of drives people a bit crazy because of the fact that you're like having to time your meals to when you drink your water. But this is the thing with water. When you're just drinking water that's not nutrified, and I'm not talking about going out and buying those vitamin drinking waters, water bottles that you can get at the gas stations and that are fortified with vitamins. So don't go out and do that just now. Stay and listen to the rest of the talk. But the best way to hydrate your body is to get nutrients and vitamins and minerals into your body, because that's actually going to help with your electrolyte balances, and it's going to actually help you retain water. Now, yeah, you could do this through supplementation for sure. People like to put their magnesium and potassium, and it used to be sodium, but now most of the sodium's eliminated for those packs. But that's what people, that is definitely how, athletes hydrate. So athletes are hydrating that way. They understand that you need to have all of those minerals and salts in their water to stay hydrated. Now, what about the rest of the population, right? The number of athletes in the world is so minuscule compared to the actual, population of the human world. Now, when we look at hydrating the body with minerals and nutrients, the best way to is through food. Everybody's going to have time to go make a cold pressed juice. Not everybody's going to have time to buy a cold pressed juice from a restaurant like ours, or any of the other million restaurants that are popping up everywhere that are serving cold pressed juice. But an easy way to do it is actually just to switch to a beautiful, clean, nutrient-rich, plant-based diet. Now, even though we are a vegan cafe and a vegetarian cafe, I do have to say, for the meat eaters out there, collagen is by far one of the best ways to hydrate the body. Now, the collagen, though, is not coming from necessarily eating the meat. It actually comes from the bone marrow and the cartilage in the bone. So that's where you're going to get that from. So, everybody's selling these collagen powder packs and everything like that to put collagen into the body, but you can actually get your body to create collagen. And the way you do this is by turning on to a beautiful plant-based diet. Now, some of the foods that are really high in collagen that allow you to create and produce collagen in the body, which will then hold on to water as well as keep moisture in the body, is by eating leafy greens, avocados, pumpkin seeds, blueberries, strawberries, what else? Lemons, citrus, all the citrus fruits. Oh my gosh, the list is quite long, actually, of foods that you can eat, and we'll create a list for you. Now, again, anytime somebody comes out and says, oh, these foods help produce collagen production in the body, everybody wants to go out and actually start just consuming, pounding back those foods. So now everybody's going to start eating pumpkin seeds. And if you've paid attention to any of the talks that we've been given, the way to optimum health, the path to optimum health, starts by eating a diet that is predominantly plant-based, if not entirely plant-based, having an abundance of those plants and a little bit of grains, and eating those foods that are basically going to create balance in the body and support your immune system to thrive, to do everything it's designed to do. So when you saturate your body with an abundance of nutrients and a diversity of nutrients, that word diversity is key, because every workshop I give, I ask people, name me the top 10 superfoods, and everybody starts with goji berries. Goji berries are the things now. Last week it was chia seeds. Before that it was quinoa. And before that it was, maca. And it's so insane, people's definition of superfoods, when at the end of the day, really, I'll name you some of the top 10 superfoods. Potatoes are superfoods. Squashes are superfood. All the leafy greens are superfoods. The citruses are superfoods. There's tropical fruit. Sure, it's superfoods, but you don't even need those to actually be able to be truly healthy. Carrots are a superfood. Any of the root vegetables that you can get, those are superfoods. Ginger is a superfood. Garlic, onion, tomatoes. Like, really, those are all superfoods. And we forget that in this day and age of marketing, where everybody's marketing the latest superfood that can be packaged and branded and be given an awesome name. And then before you know it, there's going to be goji berries and maca powder showing up in your drinking water, showing up in your deodorants, showing up in your makeup, showing up in your power bars, in your cereals, in your baking products, until, everything is then saturated with goji berries and maca, or chia seeds and quinoa, or cacao and, agave. It's absolutely wacky. So anytime you see mass marketing done on a single food, you know what I tend to do? I tend to go, don't need it. And I turn back to the foods that are never, ever going to be marketed. The squashes, the carrots, the onions, the garlic, the tomatoes, potatoes, zucchinis, like all of those foods. And the beautiful grains as well, like just the simple, beautiful rice and lentils and, and barley. And I mean, none of that stuff will ever be marketed in any crazy way that you're seeing the maca being marketed. So when you eat a beautiful diet, predominantly plant-based, that has diversity, you are actually going to be able to be hydrated. And if you're eating like that every day, you actually won't have a craving for water. You'll be like, 8 glasses of water, don't really need it. Now, this is actually a pretty good thing, because if you're able to hydrate with food and not be drinking in, these glasses of water, empty calorie water, that don't really have any nutrients, the beautiful thing is that water that you're drinking won't have the ability to leach and dilute nutrients in your body. So yes, water is important. Not saying don't drink it, but just saying consider your diet first. Put your food that you're putting into your body, make that the source of your water hydration, and then turn to water. And you may only need about 3 glasses of water a day, 3 8-ounce glasses. That's not too much. You might get that in a cup of tea, which often a lot of them are diuretic, so you might cause you to lose more water. But really, it's easy to get 3 glasses of water a day. So consider food first and foremost for hydration, then turn to water, versus thinking you need to get your 8 glasses of water a day, which then is going to dilute your hydrochloric acid in your body. And if you're diluting your hydrochloric acid, then you don't have the digestive capacity to break down your foods to their individual molecules to allow them to be absorbed and utilized by the body. So hydrochloric acid, you do not want to dilute that. You don't want to dilute any of your digestive enzymes. You don't want to dilute, really anything in your body. You want to be as nutrified as possible. So start with food to actually reverse your dehydration symptoms. And take note over the next little while. If you listen to this talk, have a listen and take note, journal it, and, mark how many glasses of water a day you're actually drinking and how thirsty you feel at the end of the day. And then do a little experiment. Switch to plant-based eating for breakfast, lunch, and dinner for a couple weeks, and then take note of how many glasses of water you're drinking and whether you feel hydrated or not. And I want to know, let me know, did you feel a difference? And one of the easiest ways to do it is definitely by consuming beautiful cold pressed juice as well. And so every time, instead of reaching for a glass of water, I tend to try and think first, how can I reach for a glass of cold pressed juice first? Because then I'm going to be giving pretty much almost like an IV bag full of a whole host of nutrients and minerals, vitamins, and everything else in there. So that's our talk on water today. Hope you learned some key facts. Please filter your water until the science is absolutely conclusive, but I doubt we'll ever arrive at that day where any science comes out to say that tap water is actually going to produce optimal health in the body. I believe it is the opposite, and I know it's the opposite from the research I've done. Eat your vegetables, eat your berries, get your foods in diversity and abundance, and then you can reverse your hydration. So stay tuned for our talk next Tuesday at noon as we cover different health topics that will hopefully help you achieve optimum health, and share this information with your friends who need it most so they can feel as amazing and vibrant as you. Have a great day.